"Excuse you," Irene exclaimed. Lena was shocked by Irene's sudden reaction, since she seemed like a pushover from the start. "I merely asked for a favor and you are being rude?" "Humph." Lena stomped her feet and angrily walked into the house, leaving Irene behind. Irene touched the pendant of the necklace around her neck and sighed. How could Lena be so shameless? It was okay for Lena to have feelings for Jun-pyo, but how dare she ask for her help to marry him? It wasn't as though Jun-pyo was a mindless robot. Besides, if she had such ability, she would have rather gotten herself married to Jun-pyo. As she imagined herself being Jun-pyo's wife, Irene chuckled and touched the pendant again before finally entering the house. The reception that welcomed her was nothing short of her expectations. If anything, she was blown away. The first thing that caught her eyes was the inscription, "Welcome Home," boldly hanging below the chandelier. The house was designed with balloons and flowers, but the decorations weren't over the top. There were 10 people, all standing and waiting, and the moment she walked in through the door, her father opened his arms and exclaimed, "Welcome home, princess." Irene stared at all the faces, which were mostly unfamiliar to her, and became teary-eyed. To some people, this did not mean much, but to Irene, it was a dream come true. She ran into Dong-wook's arms and hugged him, and after what seemed like an eternity, he let her go. She was next hugged by her granny, who gave way to tears, and finally her aunt. It was an emotional moment as Irene, who was a crybaby, shed tears as well. When they had all calmed down, Dong-wook led her to a table saying, "I personally baked a cake for you. It was your mom's favorite, and I hope you would like it too." Irene smiled. "Of course I will." They all went to the table where she cut the cake, and they all drank wine and celebrated her return. She was eventually introduced to the 7 other people in the room, who she learned were close relatives and friends. One particularly caught Irene's attention because of the way he looked. His height reminded her of Jun-pyo, and even the way he smiled was similar. It was at this point she noticed that she hadn't seen Lena since she entered the house. She wondered if Lena deliberately hid away because of what happened earlier. As the party gradually came to an end and some of the guests began to leave, she asked Dong-wook, "What about my sister, Lena? I haven't seen her since I came into the house." "Oh, forget about that brat," her granny said from behind her. "She is probably jealous because the real daughter has returned. There's a reason why I never liked her." Dong-wook frowned. "Do not say such things, Mom. You always pick on Lena, and I don't like that. She is my daughter and Irene's sister. Don't try to sow discord between them." Irene was surprised by her father's words. She stared at her granny and recalled how Minji had always called her an outsider. She began to imagine the things Lena must have gone through at the hands of her grandmother. Thinking about the conversation she had earlier with Lena, she suddenly felt that she had been too rude and wanted to make up. If Lena wasn't evil, then they could get along and become good friends. "Dad, can I see Lena?" Irene asked. "Come on, let's look for her," Dong-wook replied. Dong-wook glared at his mom before walking away with Irene. They spent the next 20 minutes searching for Lena, but could not find her. "Perhaps she has gone out," Dong-wook said to Irene. "Do not pay attention to your granny's words. She doesn't like Lena because she isn't her flesh and blood, but she is a nice girl. She is your sister, and during the times I felt I would go crazy from missing you and your mum, she was my light. She gave me a reason to laugh and to go on." Irene smiled. "Lena is very lucky because she grew up with you as her father. Don't worry, Dad. I will love her like a sister, and we will both make you happy." Dong-wook smiled and led her to a room. "You should at least see your room before leaving tonight." "My room?" Irene was surprised. Dong-wook nodded. "Lena and I decorated it and set it up for you." Irene was curious to know what her room looked like. Once they got inside, she was surprised to see Lena sleeping on what was supposed to be her bed. Dong-wook was surprised as well. He sat on the bed and tapped Lena. "Why are you sleeping here? Are you okay?" Lena opened her eyes and gasped in surprise when she saw Dong-wook. Oh no! I came in here to make sure everything was in order and did not realize when I fell asleep. I'm so sorry, Dad. It's okay, Dong-wook replied. You missed your sister's party, but she is here. Haven't you been dying to meet her? Lena turned her attention toward the door and exclaimed, Oh my God! She's here. She got up, ran to Irene, and hugged her. I'm so happy to finally meet you, Irene. Seeing Lena's reaction, Irene suddenly realized that she was stupid to consider Lena a victim. She acted in front of their father, pretending that she was seeing her for the first time. Irene forced herself to smile and afterward said to Dong-wook, Dad, I would have loved to stay and chat, but it's been almost 4 hours. It has gotten late, so I should be leaving now. She saw sadness in her father's eyes and felt bad that she was leaving him, but she had to since she had not yet moved in. In that case, I will escort you, Dong-wook said. They all left the room, and when she got to the living room, she saw her granny and aunt talking to the same guy who looked like Jun-pyo. They seemed to be fawning over him, which surprised Irene, because her father's family was wealthy. Her granny's eyes lit up when she saw her and excitedly said, Irene, come over here. When Irene walked up to them, her granny asked, Have you met Min-jae? He is a famous football player. An eye candy if you ask me. Min-jae seemed uncomfortable by Irene's granny words and tried to look away, making Irene chuckle. He did not introduce himself as a footballer when he first met her, and she didn't watch football, so she had no idea who he was except for his name. I have met him, Grandma, she replied. I should be leaving now since it's already late. But why? Now that you have found your home, there's no need to leave. Stay here. Her granny did not want her to leave, and her aunt felt the same way too. Irene was just about to explain why she couldn't stay when her father walked over and said, Come on, Mom. Irene had a life before we met her, so give her time. She can move here when she's ready. Irene flashed him a grateful smile and hugged her granny and aunt before turning to walk away. Just as they got to the door, Dong-wook's stomach began to grumble and he clutched it. Oh no! Seeing the painful expression on his face, Irene panicked. What happened, Dad? Are you okay? He shook his head and ran towards his room while Lena went after him. Irene stood at the door for a while, unsure of what to do, and finally went in the same direction. She met Lena at the door of Dong-wook's room and asked, What happened to Dad? He was too excited by your return that he had too much to drink, despite knowing that he has a weak stomach. If you think about it, Irene, this is your fault. This is just your first day in this house and Dad is already falling sick. But don't worry, he is not mad at you. Irene scoffed in disbelief while Min-jae walked up to them at this point and asked worriedly, Is Uncle okay? Grandma has gone up to her room to rest. He's fine, Lena replied in an annoyed tone and looked at Irene. Dad asked me to tell you to leave since you are in a hurry. He says Min-jae should drop you off. Is he going to be okay? Irene asked. Yes, he will, Lena said confidently. He will be in the toilet for a while though. He has me so, as long as I'm here, he will definitely be fine. You both should get going. After speaking, Lena went back into Dong-wook's room and shut the door. Was it just me or did Lena seem to not like you? Min-jae asked. Irene smiled at Min-jae and began to leave without a reply. She noticed that there was no one in the living room and headed for the exit. I'm sorry, Min-jae said just as she held the handle of the door. Irene turned and stared at him. Why are you sorry? A few things, he replied. He walked closer to her and flashed her a smile. For a moment, Irene contemplated asking him if he was related to Mr. Jun-pyo. First off, the party today was all about you because you finally found your father, yet the one who was adopted just treated you like an outsider when she should be grateful that she got to enjoy the love which was meant for you for 18 years. As she listened to Min-jae's words, Irene was surprised because she hadn't looked at it that way. She sighed and pushed the door open. You seem to know a lot about this family, Min-jae. Of course I do, Min-jae replied. I may not know everything, but I do know that Lena is just an entitled brat who thinks she can get whatever she wants. Ever since she threw herself at me and I rejected her advances, she has hated me with a passion. Irene raised her brows. Isn't that too much information? I mean, you just met me. He smiled. Your granny and mine have been best friends since childhood, so I've always been a part of this family. I lost my granny years ago, so I've always been attached to yours because she reminds me of her. She is very fond of me, and today, she told me how much she loves you. So you see, as long as your granny loves you, then I promise to always take your side. Irene laughed, opened the door, and went out while he followed behind her. Once they were outside, he added, By the way, I'm sorry about the things she said earlier, about me being an eye candy at all. When she gets like that, I feel like going under the ground to hide. But she can be really sweet. Once you get to know her better, you both will be inseparable. Irene suddenly realized that her mood, which had earlier been dampened by Lena, had improved drastically. Seeing that she was smiling, Min-jae asked, So, where do you stay? Irene was taken aback by his question. She stopped and stared at him. Why do you want to know? He chuckled. How would I drop you off if I don't know where you are going? Oh look, there's something on your face. Before Irene could react, Min-jae stretched out his hand, using his thumb to wipe something off her cheek. Unknown to Irene, Jun-pyo stood by his car, staring at both of them. His hands balled into fists, especially because he recognized the young footballer who was with Irene and knew that so many girls were crazy about him. Irene smiled at him when he was done and said, Thank you very much. He pointed at his car, and when Irene turned, she finally noticed Jun-pyo, whose car was parked a little distance away from Dong-wook's house. She gasped as she recalled the conversation they had more than 4 hours ago. Jun-pyo had told her that he was going to call and pick her up, yet she had gotten carried away with everything else and forgot about him. She wondered if he had waited for long and quickly said to Min-jae, Thank you very much, but my friend is here to pick me up. Good night. Min-jae stared at her in surprise as she ran toward Jun-pyo's car. The moment Jun-pyo saw her approaching his car, he knew she had seen him and got back into the car. Irene got in as well and said, Good evening, Mr. Jun-pyo. I'm so sorry that. Did you enjoy the party? Jun-pyo asked, cutting her off. She nodded. Yes, it was exceptional. That's all that matters, Jun-pyo replied and started the car. All through the drive back home, Jun-pyo did not say another word to her. Irene wondered if he had waited for long and if he was upset because of it. But why didn't he call her like he had said he would? If he had done so, she would not have forgotten and kept him waiting. Perhaps he wasn't upset and she was overthinking. After trying to convince herself, she kept stealing glances at him. However, his gaze remained fixed on the road. Once they arrived home, he began walking into his room without sparing her a glance. Good night, Mr. Jun-pyo, Irene said to him. He stopped and turned to stare at her. Good night, he replied without showing any emotion. After that, he walked into his room. Irene went into her room, feeling sad. Meanwhile, Jun-pyo quickly showered and went outside. Sitting by the garden, he recalled how the footballer had caressed Irene's cheek with his thumb and how she had smiled at him. He smiled bitterly. You promised not to forget me, Irene, but you broke your promise so quickly. After taking her bath, Irene sat on her bed, feeling sad. She thought about what she could do to make Jun-pyo happy and decided to send him a text. She picked up her phone and was shocked to see that she had gotten 12 missed calls. 9 were from Jun-pyo and 3 were from her father. True to his words, Jun-pyo had called 3 times, 1 hour after he dropped her off. He called her at intervals for 3 hours, and she did not realize it. Her dad called over an hour ago, but she was more distressed by the fact that she had missed Jun-pyo's calls. She didn't realize that she had accidentally put her phone on silent mode, and she blamed herself for not remembering to check her phone when she did not hear from him. She knew she would not be able to get any sleep if she did not speak to him. It was already past 11, but she still called his number. However, he did not take her calls. After calling 5 times, she left her room and went to his. She knocked on his door repeatedly, but there was no response from him. She kept knocking without realizing that he wasn't inside his room. After about 30 minutes of knocking, she finally went back to her room. She threw herself on her bed, curled her body, and cried herself to sleep. Irene woke up late in the morning because she had not been able to sleep early last night as she spent some of it thinking and crying. The moment her eyes opened in the morning, she rushed into the bathroom to freshen up. Afterward, she put on her clothes and came out of her room. She wanted to see Jun-pyo before he left for work, so she could apologize properly for what happened. When she got to his door, however, she knocked repeatedly, but there was no reply. She noticed the butler walking by and asked him, do you know if Mr. Jun-pyo has come out of his room? Mr. Jun-pyo left early for work, the butler replied. Irene nodded and said, Okay, thank you very much. She sighed and went into her room to get ready. Thinking about the fact that Jun-pyo must have seen all her missed calls but didn't say anything to her, she thought, Jun-pyo must be upset, which is why he didn't open the door for me last night and even left without me this morning. What do I do? She suddenly recalled that her father had given her missed calls too, and she had not bothered to call him back. She quickly dialed his number, and when it rang the first time, he answered and said, Irene. Oh my God, I've been so worried about you. I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know my phone was on silent mode last night. When I noticed your call, it was quite late. That's why I decided to call this morning. Why did you leave like that? He asked. I just had a running stomach. You should have given me a few more minutes. Why do you think I left like that? Dong-wook replied. Well, Lena said you told her you were in a hurry, and you couldn't wait since you didn't know what was wrong with me. Irene shook her head and smiled. I vividly remember Lena saying you wanted me to leave with the footballer, Min-jae. Lena did. Yes, she did, Irene replied. Dong-wook was quiet for a while and finally said, I'm so sorry about that. Perhaps she didn't understand what I said, or who knows. Maybe I was not in my right mind and spoke incoherently. But once I was okay, I tried to call you. I was really worried when you didn't take your calls. I was finally able to locate Min-jae before he left, and he told me someone picked you up. I assumed it was Jun-pyo Kong who did, but I still wanted to hear from you. I'm glad to know that you're okay. It's fine, Irene replied. She knew that Lena had deliberately tried to make her look bad in front of her father. But from the experience she gathered at Mr. Park's house, a father was unlikely to hate his own flesh and blood. So she wasn't worried about whatever Lena was trying to pull. How are you feeling, Dad? She asked him. If I had known that alcohol isn't good for you, I wouldn't have let you drink. Turns out that alcohol isn't good for all the good people around me. Her father laughed. Who said alcohol isn't good for me? I think I had an allergic reaction to something. Oh, you did? Yes, but I'm okay now. You do not have to worry. I have taken some medication, and I'm all good. Irene, I have a gift for you. It's a surprise, though. I should have given it to you a few birthdays ago, but it's never too late, right? Yeah, right. I'm already excited to see it, Irene replied. But then, I have a lot to do at school, so perhaps I'll call you once I'm free. No problem. Or maybe I can visit if it'll be more convenient. You stay with Mr. Jun-pyo, so will it be okay for me to visit his house? Dong-wook asked. Okay, let's do it this way. Why not I come to the house? Irene replied. Perhaps tomorrow, since my schedule is packed today. Works for me, her father responded. All right, Dad. Have a nice day. Bye. After the call ended, Irene thought for a while. Will Jun-pyo be upset if my father came here? She didn't know if he would be, and she didn't want to give her consent to her father without hearing from Jun-pyo. She suddenly realized that she had gotten an email from her manager. She received it early yesterday, but she did not see it on time. Her manager asked her to come to the agency since something important had come up. She quickly left the house and took a cab to the agency. Once she arrived, he said, "Good news. I've been able to secure a very important gig for you. I've put in so many resources and it was a real struggle. A lot of managers wanted to get this opportunity for their artists, but I got it for you. I went through a lot of trouble just so you could get this opportunity. I hope you understand what I'm saying." "Yes, I do," Irene replied. "Thank you very much, sir." She knew he was deliberately repeating himself to please her because he knew that she had the backing of Jun-pyo. However, she was still grateful to him. She was to perform in a week. That was more than enough time for her to prepare, and she was doing it in front of a larger crowd. Much larger than the one she had performed for before. "I promise, I will put in my best and not fail you," she said. "Of course. I have seen your past performances, and I must say I'm impressed. Seeing that you're a newbie and you seem like someone who has been well trained." "Thank you very much, thank you, sir," she replied. After leaving her manager's office, Irene was really excited. First, because she had a reason to visit Jun-pyo's office. Jun-pyo always followed her when she wanted to perform, so she could use this good news as an opportunity to get to meet him. After thinking about this, she quickly hurried out of the agency and picked a cab to Jun-pyo's office. When she got to the reception, however, she was stopped. "I'm here to see Mr. Jun-pyo Kong," she said. "Is he expecting you?" his secretary asked. "No, he isn't. But I've been here before. You do remember me, right?" "Yes, I do. And I'm very sorry that I cannot let you go up to his office right now." "But why is that?" Irene asked. Irene at first was afraid, thinking Jun-pyo had asked that she not be let into the office. But his secretary said, "Just relax. He has a very important meeting, and specifically asked not to be interrupted." "Okay, I'll just wait then," Irene said. She waited for more than 3 hours, but Jun-pyo still did not come out. She thought about calling him to tell him that she was outside, but thinking about how the receptionist said that he didn't want his meeting to be disturbed, she changed her mind. While she was still waiting for him, she got a call from Yuna, who asked, "Why are you not in school? I noticed you've been missing some of your classes. Are you okay? There's an important group project going on, and it covers 40% of our mark. You should be here, Irene. Something really serious has happened." What has happened?" Irene asked. "Just come first." After the call ended, Irene sighed. She looked at the time. It was already past 3. "Perhaps I can go to school and still come here," she thought. She believed that by the time she'd be done, Jun-pyo would also be done with his meeting. She left the company and took a cab to school. Once she was there, Yuna said, "Congratulations. Let me give you the good news first." "Okay, what are you congratulating me for?" "Well, the fact that you found your real father. I mean, it wasn't so long ago when the man you knew as your father before came out to deny you. There's a video of who my father is online?" "Yes, not just a video. There's an article, and it's very lengthy. Come, let me show you. I think I saved it." When Irene saw the article, there were pictures of her and her father. Some were taken at the party, and one of the pictures was the one taken when she had hugged her father in front of the school. The article went ahead to explain that Irene didn't sleep around with wealthy men, and that the man she was hugging in the photo was her real father. She decided to search for the post on social media. Yes, there were a few positive comments, but she also saw negative comments that said that Daeyoung Park was right all along. If she had indeed found her father, it meant her mother cheated on Daeyoung Park, and all these years, he spent his time raising someone else's daughter. People had both good and bad things to say about her and her mother. In the end, she decided to just ignore it. "Hold on, I need to make a phone call," she said to Yuna. She called her father and asked, Were you the one who released the article about me being your daughter? No, I didn't. I only found out this morning, and I've been trying to trace the source. I'm really surprised because I didn't authorize this. And if I did not and you did not, and I'm not sure Mr. Jun-pyo Kong did too, it means someone sinister must have done this. I want to get a hold of Soare to see if she's the one, but she isn't taking my calls. Do not worry, I'll get back to you on everything. Thank you very much, Irene said. After the call ended, she flashed Yuna a smile. Okay, you said there was bad news as well. What is the bad news? Well, for the group project, we've all been paired, and as always, I was given Jiwoo as a partner, Yuna explained. Okay, why is that bad news? I mean, it's a group project, and we will all get the chance to sing. That is something nice. Irene told her. Yuna smiled. Well, it is something nice, but will you still say that if you found out that your partner is none other than Minji? You mean Minji Park? Irene asked. Yuna nodded. Yes, Minji Park. She's waiting for you in the studio because you guys are going to perform a duet. Irene was shocked. A duet? After Jun-pyo's meeting ended, his secretary told him that Irene had come to see him. Why didn't you send her up or let me know she was here? He asked. You asked not to be disturbed, sir. I was only following your orders. She reminded him. Jun-pyo sighed. Take note, whenever Irene comes, no matter what I'm doing, let her see me. Okay, sir. Afterward, Jun-pyo went out to have his dinner. He ate as fast as he could and went back to the office because his secretary had told him that Irene said she was going to come back. He also felt that he needed to speak with her about what happened yesterday. Last night, after staying at the pool for a while, he had gone back to his room and saw so many missed calls from her. By the time it was very late, and he figured she was asleep. This morning he had so many things to do. When he woke up, he realized she was still in her room sleeping, so he left. He wanted to call her and ask her if she needed him to pick her up, but he changed his mind when he recalled how he had seen her with Min-jae. Since she wants to see me, I should just wait and let her put in the effort, he told himself. Meanwhile, Irene had a distressed look on her face. Why would they pair me up with Minji? I mean, out of all people? For crying out loud, we are 29 students in the class. I could have been paired with anyone else. Why did it have to be Minji? Yuna said, I don't know. The list came out and I just saw it this morning. I was surprised they gave me Jiwoo. We've always been partners though. When I saw Minji too, I wondered why. Since both of you are going to be performing a duet tomorrow, whoever did this seems to want to deliberately put you together, so you'll act out some drama. Minji earlier asked me about you. When I said I didn't know where you were, she said if I did see you, I should tell you to meet her at the studio where she's practicing. Irene sighed. You know what? I should go talk to the professor. Perhaps he'll give me someone else. I can't stand Minji, and she's just full of evil. I think it's a good idea. Come on, let me escort you. Yuna and Irene went to the professor's office, and Irene tried to convince him to change her partner and give her someone else, but he said no. I already made the list and gave you Minji as a partner. But why, sir? You could have given me anyone else. Irene asked. The professor smiled. Let me tell you something. If you want to be a professional singer, you need to be ready to work with anyone, including your enemies. Yes, if you cannot work with her today because you don't like her, how do you hope to become a professional singer someday? So you deliberately paired the both of us together? Irene was surprised as she had thought it was a mistake. The professor shrugged. Yeah, I saw what happened when you both were at Gyeongju, and a little birdie told me about your history together. I'm trying to help you both patch up whatever differences you have. Irene sighed. I think I have a headache. The professor smiled again. You should focus your energy on practicing and not trying to change my mind because it will not work. After Irene left his office, she thought about what to do. Left with no other option, she went to meet Minji at the studio. Once she was in there, She stood by the door staring at Minji as she sang. In her opinion, Minji was trying too hard. She isn't that good, Irene said inwardly. Minji finally turned and saw her standing by the door. There were a few other students singing in other parts of the studio, but then she went into the room since they needed to practice together. Minji stared at her condescendingly before pretending to flash her a smile. Listen, I can't stand you. You already know that. But for the sake of our grades, let's just put aside our differences and do this. Minji said. Okay, that's what I'm hoping for, Irene replied. She was surprised that Minji was acting like the mature one. Well, I've written out some of my lines. I'm thinking that since we have a very short period of time, we don't have to write new songs. You can take out lyrics from one of your favorite songs, and we'll see how we can merge them and then do it. Works for me, Irene replied. She went closer to Minji, and they began to arrange the lyrics together. Afterward, they started to practice. Irene soon checked her time and noticed that it was past 6. I think I have to call it a day from here. We've rehearsed enough, and I've also recorded some on my phone. So, I'll just rehearse once I go home. Irene said. No, you can't leave, Minji replied. We need to do this until we get it perfectly. Irene scoffed. You can practice on your own. There's no need for me to still be here. I'm leaving. Irene was in a hurry to go to Jun-pyo's office because she knew that he always closed at 6, except when he had more work. She didn't know if she was going to meet him, and she didn't want to take any chances. What if she got home and he did not open his door for her like last night? As Irene picked up her bag and began walking to the door, Minji said, Hold on, Irene. If you leave right now, I'm going to tell everyone tomorrow morning that you deliberately refused to practice with me because you want us to lose. Yes, you have some top connections and some men you sleep around with, so you know that even if you fail, your grades will not be affected. Am I right? I'm wondering who'll doubt me once I start spreading that. Irene stood at the door for a while and turned. Really? And here I thought you've stopped acting childishly. No, just in case you don't know, this is who Minji is. I always get what I want. You might have found your father or whoever, but it doesn't change anything. It doesn't alter the fact that you're a nobody. Everyone knows that. So, you might as well practice with me until I say we're good enough. Irene stood still for a moment. All right, let's continue practicing. Minji felt a sense of superiority seeing that Irene had finally given in. They practiced extensively until Minji noticed that a few minutes past 8 had elapsed. I think this is perfect enough, Irene said. Yeah, I agree, Minji replied. So I guess we can leave now. As Irene and Minji stepped outside, they realized that many students had already left due to the rain. It was even worse for Irene because she didn't have a car. For a moment, she contemplated what to do. She wondered if it was a good idea to call Jun-pyo to pick her up. After considering it, she said, No, I can't do that. I'd rather wait for a cab. She waited for the rain to subside, but after 20 minutes, there was no sign of it stopping. So she ran out and stood by the road, searching for a cab. When she finally saw one, she felt relieved and gave the driver Jun-pyo's office location. Drenched, she got into the car, already feeling cold. She asked the driver to turn on the heater. As she sat in the car, she thought about everything happening in her life. Spending time with her father, getting to know him, avoiding Lena's trap, mending things with Jun-pyo, dealing with Minji, and preparing for her performance. It seemed like there was suddenly so much on her plate. I guess I need to make a list of everything I need to do so nothing gets left out, she told herself. Lost in thought, she didn't realize when the driver took a different route. When she finally looked around, she saw that she was in a secluded neighborhood. It seemed dangerous as there was no one in sight, not even proper street lights. Where are you taking me? She asked the driver, suddenly alarmed. Calm down. This is a shortcut to your destination. He replied. No. I don't know this area. Why didn't you take the normal route that all the cars use? Relax, the driver said. Why are you so agitated? Agitated? What? Is that how you speak to your customers? The driver suddenly stopped and said, You know what? Get out of my car. What? Come on, it's raining, she said. I said get out of my car, the driver insisted. Irene hesitated to leave the car due to the isolated area. However, the driver got out, opened the door, pulled her out, and then drove away, bidding her good riddance. Irene hesitated, staring at the departing car. Eventually, she decided to call Mr. Jun-pyo. There seemed to be no other option. As she reached for her phone, four boys approached. Seeing them, fear gripped Irene, and she quickly stashed her phone back in her pocket. Hey, beauty. One of the guys leered as he advanced. He reached out to touch her, but she slapped his hand away. Growing angry, he retorted, Oh, I see she's feisty. Come on, guys, let's teach her a lesson. Irene swiftly turned and bolted, the group of guys in pursuit. She dashed through the rain until they finally caught up. Let's take her somewhere private, one of the guys suggested. As they dragged her, Irene shouted for help. Her screams were muffled as one of the guys covered her mouth. She managed to bite him and continued screaming. Suddenly, an unexpected figure appeared in front of them. Before Irene could utter a plea for help, she was struck on the back of her head with a stick. Dizzy, she staggered backward, causing the guys to release their grip and flee. Standing there, Irene locked eyes with the person before her. He approached and asked, Irene, are you okay? Are you okay? Feeling dizzy and on the verge of collapsing, she was caught by him. Despite her haziness, his face seemed familiar. She managed, Mr. Jun-pyo, you came. The man corrected her gently. No, I'm not Jun-pyo. It's me, Min-jae. Min-jae, thank you. Please help me, Irene pleaded. Where should I take you? Min-jae inquired, carrying her in his arms toward his parked car across the road. Irene remained silent. Min-jae repeated his question, realizing she was losing consciousness. Worried, he placed her in his car and turned on the heater before driving to his house. En route, he arranged for a doctor to attend to her. After receiving an injection for her well-being, Min-jae ensured Irene's comfort. Meanwhile, Jun-pyo waited in his office, growing concerned as Irene failed to return. He called her multiple times but received no response. Wondering if she had gone to her father's, he dialed once more, and this time, her phone was answered. Why haven't you been answering my calls? Jun-pyo asked. Sorry, this isn't Irene, came the reply. Confused, Jun-pyo inquired. Who are you? Why are you answering Irene's phone? I'm Min-jae, the famous footballer. You should know me, Min-jae responded. Where's Irene? Jun-pyo questioned with a frown. Irene is resting in my bed, Min-jae replied, looking at the resting Irene. Jun-pyo was stunned. What? Why will Irene be resting in your bed? Min-jae chuckled. Do I have to explain to you why my girlfriend is on my bed? Who are you, by the way? Upset, Jun-pyo abruptly hung up, throwing his phone in anger and smashing it against the wall. Irene opened her eyes in the morning, looked at the time and gasped. It was almost 12, and she had to perform with Min-jae at 2. Min-jae came into the room with a tray of food, and the moment Irene saw him, she recalled everything that happened last night. She quickly got up, but he said, Relax, Irene. You were hit really hard last night. You should get as much rest as you can. The doctor advised it. Is this a hotel or your house? Irene asked. It's my house, Min-jae replied. I'm sorry I brought you here last night. I was driving at night when I saw you being chased by a group of guys. I did my best to help you, but you passed out. I thought of taking you to your father, but I figured he'd be worried, so I brought you to my place and had a doctor look at you. Thank you so much, Irene told him. If it hadn't been for you, I don't know what would have happened to me last night. But what exactly happened and where were you headed? Min-jae asked. She sighed. I will tell you some other time, but I have to leave for now. Have breakfast first. It will help you, and the doctor said you shouldn't move about. Irene picked up her bag without realizing that her phone wasn't inside it. I have something important to do at school, so I need to leave right now. Let me drop you off then, Min-jae offered. Don't worry about it, she replied and ran out of his house. She took the bus and stopped at the bus station. She ran all the way to Jun-pyo's house from there, and by the time she got home, she was feeling dizzy. She rested for a few minutes before freshening up and taking a taxi to school. When she arrived at the gate, it was already 20 minutes to 2. She began hurrying to the hall where the music presentation would take place. Meanwhile, Minji got a notification on her phone which read, "She has arrived." Minji smiled and replied, "Keep her busy, and no matter what, don't let her get into this hall." Just as Irene got closer to the hall, more than 10 reporters came out of nowhere and surrounded her. She stared at the reporters in surprise, looked at her watch, and saw that she had about 15 minutes left. She was just about to push through the reporters when they began throwing questions at her. "Is it true that you are having illicit relationships with married men? Tell us, who are your sponsors? How many are there? How do you manage so many men at the same time? Are you sure you are just 18? How can you be so shameless?" Irene stared at the reporters with an angry expression on her face. She realized that retorting would only waste her time, so she tried to move past them, but they began to push her from different directions, refusing to let her go. She became teary-eyed as she realized that they were deliberately wasting her time. She quickly suspected Minji and wanted to take out her phone to call Yuna for help. She dipped her hand into her bag and realized that her phone wasn't inside. She had just 5 minutes left and put in more effort to push through the journalists, but she felt dizzy once again and lost her balance. Right when she almost fell, someone pulled one of the journalists from behind and caught her. When Irene looked up, Min-jae's face came into her view and tears fell from her eyes. He steadied her and turned to face the journalists. "How dare you insult my Irene? Do you all never want to perform journalism again?" "We are just asking her questions," the journalists replied. They all recognized Min-jae and knew he was dearly loved by so many people. Min-jae scoffed, "I heard your stupid questions, but I have an answer for you all. Irene is my girlfriend, the love of my life. She has no reason to be with any old man, because she has me. This is the last time I will say this. If I ever catch any of you harassing her again, I will not spare you." Irene stared at Min-jae in surprise while he wiped her tears and cupped her cheeks. He made a move to kiss her, but she quickly turned her face, and he ended up kissing her cheeks. The reporters frantically captured this moment, while Irene felt uncomfortable and moved away from Min-jae. She looked at the time and saw that it was a few minutes after 2. "Oh no!" She gasped and rushed into the hall without saying a word to Min-jae or the reporters. Once she was inside the hall, she spotted Minji atop the stage smiling and about to start singing. The smile on Minji's face froze the moment she saw Irene. She began to sing, while Irene hurried to the stage and sang along with her. Irene tried to forget about everything that was happening around her and immerse herself in the song. At this time, though, the image of Irene being kissed by Min-jae had gone viral with the caption, "Done with married men, Irene Yoon finally captures the heart of international football star, Min-jae Han." Jun-pyo stared at the picture for a while and could not understand what was going on. Suddenly, it seemed like he did not know Irene anymore. He called her number, but at this time, her phone was still with Min-jae, who was inside the hall watching her sing. Seeing that Jun-pyo was the one calling, Min-jae went outside and answered the call. "You again. Why do you keep calling my girlfriend?" Min-jae asked when he answered the call. "Give the phone to Irene now," Jun-pyo ordered. Min-jae smiled and said, "Okay." After a few seconds, he asked in a loud voice, "Irene, there's a Mr. Jun-pyo on the line. Do you want to speak to him?" A few more seconds passed, and he put the phone by his ear again. I'm sorry, Mr. Jun-pyo or whatever your name is. Irene doesn't want to speak to you, so stop disturbing her. Min-jae hung up on Jun-pyo and he scoffed, unable to believe it. Something must be wrong, he said to himself and walked out of his office. He knew Irene was in school because the viral pictures had been captured there. He got into his car and drove to Irene's academy. At this time, Irene had finished performing. She recalled how Min-jae had held and pecked her and how the reporters had captured it. She became worried that Jun-pyo would misunderstand if he saw it. She sneaked out of the hall while others were still performing. She wanted to go to Jun-pyo's office so she could explain everything that had been happening. She was surprised to see Min-jae outside waiting for her. He smiled and hugged her. That was an amazing performance, Irene. I'm so proud of you. Irene frowned at him. Thanks for saving me earlier, Min-jae, but you shouldn't have called me your girlfriend in front of those people, or even kissed me. I didn't like it. I'm sorry, Min-jae replied, sounding sincere. Your phone fell off your bag while you were in my house. I noticed it after you left and remembered that you said you had something important to do in school. When I came here and saw those journalists harassing you, that was the only thing I could think of. Irene nodded and took her phone from him. Thanks anyway. I'm very grateful. I'm leaving now. Hold on, he said, running after her as she began to walk to the gate. He offered to take her home, but Irene refused. As he followed her, he kept trying to convince her to go with him. At this time, Jun-pyo came out of his car and began walking into the school. He stopped walking when he spotted Irene approaching with Min-jae. Jun-pyo saw the way Irene and Min-jae were interacting as well as her phone, which she held in her hand. He turned, went back into his car, and angrily drove away. Min-jae escorted Irene until she went outside the school. He finally waved her goodbye and went toward where he parked his car. Meanwhile, Irene took a cab to Jun-pyo's company. This time, she kept looking at the road. Although it was just a few minutes to 3, she was cautious because of what happened to her last night. When she arrived at Jun-pyo's office, his secretary informed her that he wasn't in the office but would be back later. Irene tried to call Jun-pyo, but his number wasn't reachable. She decided that she wasn't going to leave unless she cleared up whatever misunderstanding Jun-pyo had about everything that had happened. She felt very hungry as she hadn't eaten anything since morning. However, her heart was in so much turmoil that she couldn't bring herself to eat. After waiting for hours, she looked at her time and saw that it was a few minutes past 6. Some of Jun-pyo's employees began to leave and Irene felt even sadder. At this time, Jun-pyo, who had gone to a quiet place to be alone, stared at the pack of cigarettes he had bought. He took out a stick and lit it, but his hands shook when he took it closer to his mouth. He angrily threw it away. It has been more than 10 years since he smoked, but his heart was in so much pain. Irene was the first girl he had ever loved, but unfortunately, he wasn't the one she loved. He couldn't blame her. Min-jae was in his early 20s, whereas he was years older than her. She must have fallen for him at first sight, and the love seemed so intense that she spent the night in Min-jae's house and refused to speak to him. She probably knows about my feelings for her, which is why she is ignoring me, he muttered. I need to forget you, Irene. I can't let myself break down like this. Blacklisting your number is not enough. I need to get you out of my life. If I don't see you, then it will be easier to forget you. After making up his mind, Jun-pyo called Dong-wook and said, Irene is waiting for you to take her back home. She told me that she wants to bond with her father. Really? Dong-wook was very happy. She did tell me she would be coming home today, but I didn't think she meant permanently. I just got back home with a gift for her and was about to call her. That's nice, Jun-pyo replied. You can pick her up at my house since you already know the address. Dong-wook thanked Jun-pyo once again before hanging up. He quickly left his house and drove to Jun-pyo's house. However, Irene was not there when he arrived. He called her line, and Irene quickly took out her phone from her pocket, thinking Jun-pyo was the one calling. Her excitement dimmed when she saw that it was her father. At this time, it was almost 7 and the rest of the workers had begun to leave. "Hey, Dad." Irene tried to sound happy so her dad would not be worried. "Where are you?" Dong-wook asked. "Jun-pyo asked me to come and fetch you. I'm here in his house, but you are not here." Irene was shocked. "When did he call you?" "Almost an hour ago," Dong-wook replied. "Okay, I'll be right there," Irene said. She left Jun-pyo's company and took a cab back to his house. When she saw her dad, she smiled and asked, "Is Mr. Jun-pyo inside? What exactly did he tell you?" Dong-wook stared at her in surprise. He suddenly realized that something must have happened between Irene and Jun-pyo. He was happy to have his daughter live with him, so he did not try to dwell on why Jun-pyo had really asked him to take her away. "Jun-pyo said you expressed your desire to leave his house and move in with me because you want to strengthen our relationship, so he asked me to come and pick you up," Dong-wook explained. Irene said, "Okay, I'll go and get my things." She controlled her emotions as she walked into her room. However, once she was inside, she broke down in tears. She kept crying until her father finally knocked on her door. "Irene, do you need help packing?" "No," she quickly replied. She went into the bathroom and washed her face before carrying her luggage. She wasn't in the mood to pack, so she left many of her clothes behind. She came out with her bag and left with Dong-wook. While in the car, Dong-wook noticed that she was sad and her eyes were puffy. Her stomach grumbled and he said, "You must be very hungry. Do you want us to have dinner outside before going home?" Irene shook her head. "No, I just want to go home and sleep." Dong-wook nodded and drove her back home. She noticed that there was a new latest edition white Toyota Highlander parked right in front of the house. Her first thought was that the car belonged to Lena, and she wanted to show off. However, when he came out of the car, Dong-wook handed Irene the keys to the Highlander and said, "This is my first gift to you. I know that you have had a rough life, but I promise to do my best as your father. I won't let you down. If you need someone to talk to, you can always come to me because I love you so much and I will do anything for you." Irene threw herself in his arms and began to cry. Dong-wook felt so distressed that he wanted to call Jun-pyo to find out what happened between him and Irene, but he thought better of it. After crying for a while, Irene wiped her eyes, took the keys from her father, and said, "Thank you so much, Dad. I really love your gift." Dong-wook smiled and stroked her hair. "Come on, let's go in. You need to eat." Irene shook her head. "I don't feel like eating yet." They both went into the house while Dong-wook carried her luggage for her. She noticed Lena in the living room but completely ignored her and went straight to her room. Lena welcomed Dong-wook and took Irene's luggage from him, helping to take it to her room. Once they entered the room, they saw Irene lying on the bed without bothering to shower or change her clothes. Lena wanted to speak, but Dong-wook said, "She's tired, just let her rest." He went to the kitchen and had the maids get Irene's dinner ready. While he was waiting, he went online and saw the video of Min-jae confessing that Irene was his girlfriend. When did Min-jae become her boyfriend? He wondered. He concluded that it must have had something to do with Irene's mood. Meanwhile, Jun-pyo finally went back home. Seo-yeon was standing by the garden, waiting for him to come home. Once his car pulled into the garage, she ran to it. The moment he came out of his car, she threw herself into his arms and hugged him. Jun-pyo sighed, hugging her back. Afterward, he pulled away and asked, "What happened?" "Nothing," she replied. "I noticed you were very sad and decided to hug you so you would feel better." Jun-pyo smiled. "Thanks, Seo-yeon. Did Irene leave with her father?" Seo-yeon nodded. "Yes, I don't know who he was, but a man came and she left with him while carrying her luggage." Jun-pyo nodded. "Okay. I'm very tired. I just want to go to sleep. Good night." As she watched him walk into the house, she smiled. She took out her phone and dialed a number. When the call was answered, she said, "Hey Min-jae, I just wanted to commend you for a job well done. Who would have known you would succeed in helping me get Irene out of this house so soon?" Min-jae smiled. "What can I say? I'm just a very good actor." He recalled when Seo-yeon had just reached out to him, wanting him to be her partner in crime and take advantage of his relationship with Irene's grandmother. At the time, he hadn't met Irene yet, but after Seo-yeon signed a contract with him worth millions of won in benefits, he agreed to work with her. From there, he began to have someone tail Irene. He put her phone on silent mode at her welcome home party, so Jun-pyo would not be able to reach her. He poisoned her father's food so he would end up at the toilet, giving him the opportunity to escort Irene out of the house, knowing Jun-pyo was waiting outside. He planned with the taxi driver, who took her to a dangerous location. He also planned with the guys who harassed her, so he could come in and be her hero. He answered and deleted all of Jun-pyo's calls to her, so Irene wouldn't know he called. And that afternoon, he had hidden her phone and taken it to her school, so he could get a chance to be captured with her. Fortunately, he saw an opportunity and took advantage of it. The man he planned with to secretly take pictures of both of them had done so without anyone realizing. The journalists were too afraid to post the pictures they had taken because he had threatened them in front of Irene. So, while she was performing, he received the pictures and secretly posted them with the viral caption. When he noticed Jun-pyo coming from outside, he deliberately moved much closer to her, blocking her view so she would not see Jun-pyo, while also giving the impression that they were lovers. As he thought about how much effort he put into separating them, he told Seo-yeon, "I put in so much effort though. You should compensate me some more." After the call ended, Seo-yeon heaved a sigh of relief. "Now that Irene is out of your house and your life, I am going to make you mine, Jun-pyo." Jun-pyo sat on his bed, feeling very sad. His mind was filled with thoughts of Irene, and despite how hard he tried, he couldn't stop thinking about her. In the end, he couldn't take it anymore. He removed her number from his blacklist and wanted to just hear her voice, but he gave up at the last minute. He finally left his room and went into her room, after ensuring that no one saw him. He lay on her bed and her fragrance, which lingered on the sheets, filled his nostrils. "I shouldn't have sent you away, Irene. What have I done?" He regretted his decision and lay face down, sniffing her scent until he eventually fell asleep. While Irene was lying in her room, Dong-wook went in with a plate of food and tapped her gently. "Get up, Irene. Dinner is ready." Irene turned and stared at him. "I don't feel like eating, Dad." "I know you don't, but you still need to eat, okay? Sit up." Irene sighed, got up, and sat down. Her dad picked up the spoon, scooped the rice, and took it to her mouth. She smiled and opened her mouth, accepting the food from him. He felt very happy, and as he continued to feed her, said, "You know, I fed your mum this same way many years ago. She was upset with me, so I made a delicious meal for her. She was so happy that she cried. She was a very emotional person, just like you." Irene chuckled. "I can just imagine her acting like a baby while you fed her." After eating a few spoons, Irene said, "Now, I'm really full, Dad. Thank you so much. I enjoyed the food." Dong-wook kissed her forehead and said goodnight to her. After he left, Irene sighed. She had wanted to refuse her father, but she didn't want to hurt his feelings, so she managed to eat some of the food. She got up and went into the bathroom to shower. As she took her clothes off, she touched the necklace which Jun-pyo had gifted her. She stood in front of the mirror, touching the pendant. She thought about the first time she had met Jun-pyo in the hospital. She recalled how she had kissed him back in Gyeongju, and how he had kissed her in his bedroom. She also thought back to the day he had put the necklace around her neck. That was the day their relationship became strained. Now Jun-pyo had blacklisted her number and didn't want her in his life anymore. What do I do? She wondered. A thought finally came into her mind. Her heart raced, just thinking about it. Nevertheless, she decided, I'm going to confess my feelings to Jun-pyo first thing tomorrow morning. If he rejects me, so be it. But he needs to know how I feel about him. I can't live so miserably like this. After making up her mind, she finally went to her bed and fell asleep. Irene woke up early the next day, prepared her lines, and after freshening up, she left for Jun-pyo's office. She was sure he would be at his office, however. When she got to his company, his secretary informed her that he had not yet arrived. She didn't want to wait in the same spot she did the previous day, so she went outside to stroll while waiting for him. Just as she came out, she saw Taeyong about to go in. "Hey Irene," he said, smiling. "Good morning, Taeyong," she replied, smiling back. "It's been a while," Taeyong said. "You're here to see Jun-pyo, I presume." Irene nodded. "That's nice," Taeyong replied. "We have a lot of meetings scheduled for this morning. I don't know if he deliberately chose to wake up late because it's his birthday." Irene was shocked. "Today is Mr. Jun-pyo's birthday?" Taeyong stared at her as though she was kidding. "Are you saying you didn't know?" Irene shook her head. "No, I didn't." Her heart began to beat even faster again. It was Mr. Jun-pyo's birthday, yet she didn't know. Taeyong said they had so many meetings to attend that morning. Would Jun-pyo have the time to listen to her? She suddenly got an idea and said to herself, "Yes, that will be better." Once Taeyong went into the company, she ran out as quickly as possible, telling herself that she had to make Jun-pyo's birthday special. She got into her new car and began to slowly drive back home since she wasn't such a good driver. Although she had gotten her license, it was with the help of her high school friend back then. She never drove any of the park's cars, and after Minji turned her friend into her enemy, she never got the chance to drive a car again until this morning. Once she got back home, she saw Minjae waiting for her in the living room. "What are you doing here?" she asked. "I came to see Grandma," he replied. "And you too," he added. "Thank you," she said. "I'm really busy and need to head out right now." "Where to?" "I'll give you a ride," he offered. Irene smiled. "I got my own car now, Minjae, so there's no need for you to go through the trouble." After speaking, Irene ran into her room and shut the door. She began to write out what she wanted to do and listen to some of her favorite songs until she finally settled on the one she needed. After this, she put a call through to a luxurious hotel and booked their garden from 4 p.m. to 12 p.m. After doing this, she took out a beautiful and sexy white gown, a red pair of shoes, and her makeup kit, which she barely used, before running out of her room. She saw Minjae still sitting in the living room. He got up the moment he saw her, but she waved him goodbye and left without speaking to him again. She got into her car and drove away without knowing that he was secretly following her. She stopped by a florist's shop and bought 100 bouquets of dandelions. The florist helped her put them in her car, while Minjae observed her from a distance. After leaving the florist's shop, she drove to the luxurious hotel whose garden she had booked. She paid for a room and went into the room to arrange everything she needed. She heaved a sigh of relief when she confirmed that she had gotten everything to make her plans work. She suddenly realized she had left out the most important part and gasped. "Oh no! I should have called Mr. Jun-pyo first. What if he refuses to see me?" What worried her the most was that Jun-pyo had blacklisted her number. She couldn't just call him with any random number because he did not take calls from unknown numbers. She suddenly recalled her father. Jun-pyo would not reject her father's call. But how could she ask him for his phone all of a sudden? She didn't want him to know what she was up to. It would make her feel embarrassed. She sighed and sat down on the bed, thinking of a better alternative. In the end, she decided to try calling Jun-pyo with her number, while hoping desperately that it was just her assumption and Jun-pyo hadn't really blacklisted her. When she dialed his number and the call went through, she screamed in excitement. At this time, Jun-pyo was having a meeting in his office and Taeyong was present because their companies were collaborating. His secretary had informed him that Irene came to see him yesterday and today. However, when he woke up this morning, he had made up his mind to focus on work and forget about Irene. He had neglected so much the past few days because of her. Now, he was going to return to the old Jun-pyo who buried all his time in his work. When his phone rang and he saw that the call was from Irene, he contemplated for a while and decided to answer it. Excusing himself, he went into his private room and answered the call. Hello. Irene was silent for a while as her heart kept beating fast. Speak, Irene. I'm very busy, Jun-pyo said curtly. Good morning, Mr. Jun-pyo, Irene replied. I'm sorry for interrupting your work. I really need to see you today, please. I'm very busy today. Perhaps some other time, Jun-pyo replied. Please make the time. Mr. Jun-pyo, it's a matter of life and death for someone. Irene told him. Jun-pyo sighed because he was indeed very busy. Will 4 be okay? Irene asked when Jun-pyo kept silent. I'll still be busy, Jun-pyo replied. 5 p.m. She asked. Busy, he replied. 6 p.m. She asked. Busy, he replied. 7 p.m. She asked. Still busy, he replied. What about 8 p.m. then? Irene was ready to ask until it got to 6 a.m., as she was determined to tell him about her feelings. 8 p.m. it is, then, Jun-pyo finally agreed. Just this morning, Seo-yeon had insisted that they spend the night partying to celebrate his birthday. Jun-pyo had initially refused, but when she kept insisting, he finally gave in. The party was to begin at 7 and end at midnight at a karaoke bar, but because Irene insisted, he decided to sneak out and see her briefly before returning to the party. He couldn't deny that a part of him was excited to meet Irene, but he was also afraid because he didn't want to spend the night feeling miserable if she was only going to hurt him further. I'll be waiting for you at the Garden in Paradise Hotel by 8. See you then, Mr. Jun-pyo. Irene hung up once she was done speaking. She sat on the bed and collected her emotions while Jun-pyo went back to his meeting. Once it was noon, she went out of her hotel room, took out the bouquets of dandelions from her car, and went to the garden. She began to set the whole place up meticulously. Unknown to her, Min-jae took pictures of her and forwarded them to Seo-yeon, telling her what he had seen. He had a date with his girlfriend and could not spend his whole time watching Irene, so he left. Once Irene was done, she began to feel dizzy once again. Just like yesterday, she had not eaten since morning, and her body felt weak, but she was more focused on the task at hand. She went back into her hotel room to wait and ended up falling asleep. She woke up when it was 7 in the evening, showered, and began to get ready. She styled her hair and wore light makeup, along with her shoes before going to the garden to wait for Jun-pyo. At this time, Jun-pyo was with Seo-yeon and Taeyong. He had spent most of his day working and finally got off work a few minutes to 7 because Seo-yeon kept calling him. After seeing what Min-jae sent to her, Seo-yeon became afraid that Jun-pyo was going to go to Irene if she called him. She didn't want to let that happen. She had worked too hard to let Irene make a comeback. She prepared different activities for them to engage in. However, when it was 8, Jun-pyo excused himself, saying to Seo-yeon and Taeyong, I need to do something very important. I will be back in 30 minutes. However, Seo-yeon blocked the door as she said, This is not fair, Jun-pyo. You know, I don't know how to sing or dance, but I practiced for a long time just to make your birthday special. How can you leave just when I am about to perform? She became teary-eyed and blackmailed Jun-pyo emotionally until he agreed to watch her before leaving. Meanwhile, Irene waited for Jun-pyo once it was 8, but there was no sign of him. 30 minutes passed and she became worried and called his number. However, Jun-pyo had no idea that Seo-yeon had put his phone on silent mode and kept watching her as she sang and danced in the most embarrassing way he had ever seen. Both he and Taeyong could not stop laughing while Seo-yeon intensified her efforts, happy that she was entertaining Jun-pyo, even though she was embarrassing herself. When Jun-pyo did not answer Irene's call, she sat on the garden chair and began to cry. It began to rain almost immediately, and she watched all the flowers she had arranged on the ground become wet. She remained under the rain, crying as it fell on her, wetting her clothes. Soon enough, she began to feel cold and dizzy at the same time. She curled her body, leaning her cheek on her knees as she stared at the instruments she had rented to perform for Jun-pyo. Fortunately, she had put them under a shed, otherwise, they would have been ruined. Her phone rang repeatedly, but she did not bother to take it out of her purse to see who was calling. Nothing seemed to matter as her heart felt as though it had been stabbed with a knife. The rain stopped falling, but she remained in the same position. It was a few minutes past 10 when a familiar pair of shoes came into her view. She looked up and saw Jun-pyo. She got up quickly in surprise and exclaimed, "Mr. Jun-pyo? I'm sorry I couldn't." Jun-pyo stopped when he noticed that her hair and gown were wet. "Why did you stay under the rain? Don't you know it's not good for your health?" he asked angrily. "You are here, Mr. Jun-pyo, and that is all that matters." The rest of Irene's words got stuck in her throat when she saw both Seo-yeon and Taeyong appearing behind Jun-pyo. She had thought Jun-pyo would come alone, but he didn't. She took a step back as she wondered, "How will I confess my feelings if these two are around?" Jun-pyo looked around the garden. He spotted the instruments under the shed and the wet dandelions on one part of the garden which she had decorated like a stage. He also saw the way she was dressed. Despite being drenched, she looked very beautiful. "Were you about to sing for me?" he asked. Irene smiled and nodded. "Happy birthday, Mr. Jun-pyo." "Thank you," Jun-pyo replied happily. Irene was feverish and felt a tight knot in her stomach, but she refused to let go of the opportunity she had gotten with so much difficulty. Standing behind Jun-pyo, Seo-yeon, who had done everything possible to prevent him from coming, was filled with so much hate. Meanwhile, Taeyong, who had realized that Irene wanted to sing for Jun-pyo, was pleased. He nudged Seo-yeon and said, "Thanks for convincing Jun-pyo to let us tag along. I've never watched Irene perform live, so this will surely be entertaining." "But why is she drenched? Was she playing under the rain?" Ignoring Taeyong's questions, Irene went to the shed and turned on the instruments which were connected to the socket on the wall. Afterward, she went to the stage she had created and stood on the flowers. Jun-pyo's gaze was fixed on her, and he felt moved that she went through so much trouble just to perform a song for him on his birthday. "Why won't I be head over heels for you, Irene, when you do things like this?" he wondered. Irene began, "The song I am about to sing is one that expresses the feelings in my heart. Mr. Jun-pyo, I am singing this song to you." When Irene began to sing, Jun-pyo was held spellbound as always. He kept staring at her, and as she sang about wishes and hopes for love, the words kept ringing in his head. He began to wonder if Irene really had feelings for him, or if he was misunderstanding her. Once she was done singing, Irene stared at Jun-pyo, her chest heaving heavily and her body chilled to the bone as her vision became blurred by her tears. She didn't know what Jun-pyo was thinking as he just kept staring at her in surprise. She couldn't be bothered with Taeyong and Seo-yeon as her entire focus was on Jun-pyo. He began to walk towards her while Seo-yeon stared at the both of them as though she was watching a horror movie. In no time, Jun-pyo was standing on the stage, a few inches away from her. He looked into her eyes as he asked, "The wordings of that song, are you?" Irene nodded, interrupting him. "How is it possible that each time I close my eyes, your face is the only thing I see? How do I tell you that when you are not with me, I get lovesick? How do I tell you that every second of my life is filled with thoughts of you? How do I tell you, Mr. Jun-pyo, that I have fallen head over heels in love with you?" "Irene," Jun-pyo gasped and held her cheeks. "I am so in love with you," he replied and crashed his lips on hers. She placed her hands on his chest, closing her eyes as her lips parted to savor his kiss. Jun-pyo pulled away from her and caressed her face, smiling and staring at her as everything seemed too good to be true. Irene opened her eyes and smiled back at him, however. Her body could not hold on any longer. She closed her eyes and fell into his arms, giving into the darkness as she lost consciousness. Thank you for watching. Kindly subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so as to get notified when we drop new stories. Like and share to family and friends, and finally tell us where you're watching from in the comment section, and we will see you in our next video.